Hello everyone, my name is FlareBlitzed, and today we are going to dive into something quite different. And that's comparing two different games to one another, the similarities and differences of them. The games being, well, you've seen the title, and if you are still pondering, then they are Prom Dreams and Doki Doki Literature Club. Two games that I thoroughly enjoyed playing. One comment in the video of mine grabbed my attention about both, giving similarities and differences of both of these games. Before receiving this comment, the thought of these two games having comparisons didn't cross my mind. But the more I thought about it along with this comment, there are some definite aspects in both games that you as the viewer, player, etc. can consider as similarities. So how are we going to compare Prom Dreams to Doki Doki Literature Club and vice versa? Well, I'm going to divide this scenario into two main sections, one being similarities and the other, obviously, being differences. Both games have the cycle aspect where events repeat themselves, with each cycle having slightly different takes on dialogues, events, etc. This is the first of a few main topics to discuss. Comparing characters is the second main topic, for example the similarities between Kyle and the protagonist of DDLC, or similarities between Brooke and Yuri, etc. Not every single combination of characters from both games have similarities with one another, but the majority of them do have at least one similarity. The following topic is the story aspect of both games and how they are similar between one another. Each game has defining features that, alongside one another, are very similar. Lastly, the horror side on both games. Though in comparison to the cycle, characters and story topics, this one will be smaller as horror is only prominent when the factor of horror is there, though there will be discussed after similarities and differences of both games overlap and diverge in this manner. Some people will be utterly freaked out by them, and others like myself aren't phased out by them at all. The same topics discussed afterwards, but in the differences category. Horror in itself isn't horror after witnessing it multiple times. From this point onwards, there are major spoilers regarding both games, so if you want to play them before being spoiled, then I'll suggest clicking off this video, go play them, and then come back. Perfect timing. If you have not done so already, then I would strongly suggest clicking the subscribe button along with the notification bell, also clicked, so that you don't miss out on any new videos of mine in the future. Also, comment on the video down below if I've missed out on any aspects on either Prom Dreams or Doki Doki Literature Club that should have been made in the video. Finally, give the developer of Prom Dreams and developers of Doki Doki Literature Club some love by following their respective pages down in the description. Developer of Prom Dreams are in the process of making Turovo the Celestial Tower, an adventure, dark, turn-based RPG game. Play the demo that's already out, link is in the description. Along with Team Salvato not having any other games in the pipeline, though buying their merch would certainly be something to consider, especially since they have so much cuteness, definitely mean cuteness out there. That should be enough time for those who don't want spoilers. Without further ado, let us begin. Prom Dreams has 4 cycles, the first, second and third having the same scenery as each other, with different dialogue and story flow while going through it. The third being the most different than the first and second. The fourth breaks the chain by having scenery and story flow differences ramped up completely, ending that cycle chain as it were. Doki Doki Literature Club has 3 cycles. The first and second are set with the same scenery, moderate dialogue differences and events transpiring differently. Some very warped while others being removed entirely. The third cycle breaks the chain where it's just you and, oh, it's just Monica, oh dear. People would say that Doki Doki Literature Club has a 4th cycle where it's without Monica, but I would call that more of the ending rather than an actual cycle in itself. The cycle on both games are prominent when predicting the future when you play the second, third one, etc. You know that around 90% or more of the events are the same with dialogue tweaks and an air of familiarity in Prom Dreams. Each cycle within Prom Dreams has slight tweaks to them depending on which character Kyle dated first, second, then third. As you can tell from the screen that's displayed the 6 different orders you can play in. It doesn't affect the ending of the game at all, but if you want that juicy storyline with each of the characters, then I suggest you play the game through about 6 times or so. The first and second cycle when it comes to the date, the selected character acts entirely the same, while Kyle feels a sense of deja vu on the second cycle as he knew something isn't quite right. Feeling that he has seen these events before but not being able to fathom out how and why of that deja vu though. The same applies for the events that took place beforehand. You select out of 2 or 3 different girls as your date, with only one thing being different in the second cycle, which is the girl that has already transpired. How this relates to Doki Doki Literature Club? Well, the first cycle plays out similarly in a task sense. You choose favourable words to write a poem that can increase your bond with Sayori, Yuri or Natsuki. The tasks in both games to choose the girl of your dreams are different, but the psychological work in both turn out to produce the same result. Being that you are either with Neela, Maggie or Brooke on a date within Prom Dreams, similarly you can impress either Sayori, Natsuki or Yuri depending on the words chosen as inspiration in DDLC. The end of the first cycle in both games are horrific. Certainly the first time around playing the games for yourself has the element of the unknown to you. What a surprise! But both games ends with a major character's demise. Other aspects of the cycles in both games are very different, so those stuff in the second cycle, third cycle, etc. of both games, along with the fourth one of Prom Dreams will be discussed later. But for now we move on to characters. There are a lot of character combinations which you can see now, but not all of them have similarities or any game-changing implementations that you could call similarities. Though like I said earlier, if you find anything that I haven't mentioned, put a comment down below. Kyle and protagonist are the male protagonists of their respective games where they are surrounded by wonderful girls. 3 different girls to choose from by selecting them to be their prom date or to focus your prom writing on to impress one of the 3 girls. Kyle and protagonist both were lured out of their own will into a cycle controlled by Dolores and Monica, both having an interest of the boy of their desires. Kyle and Sayori both suffer with depression throughout the game. Kyle suffers depression from the loss of his previous girlfriend, whereas Sayori suffers with depression throughout her life, but is never explained in DDLC on the cause of her depression. Claire and Yuri both like knives. While not stated in Prom Dreams that Claire likes them, she always used one or a similar object like an ice pick when killing one of Kyle's prom dates. Yuri herself has a knife collection and she used one to cut materials when making banners for the festival. Additionally, she used one to stab herself multiple times, along with the self-harm stuff, hence why Yuri covers herself up more than most people, hence the long sleeves. Claire and Sayori are both characters that killed themselves during the game. Claire used a knife, while Sayori hung herself. Claire believed that her purpose with Dolores has ended, during which she took her own life, along with Sayori took the rejection or acceptance of the protagonist from her confession and similarly ended her own life. Neela and Yuri are both shy characters that mean very well and take a quick liking to their male friend. Neela has already met Kyle before, but both characters are quite shy towards one another, while Yuri takes a quick interest in the protagonist while discussing books, amongst other things. Neela and Natsuki are both chefs/bakers, Neela making food for Kyle, while Natsuki makes cupcakes for her friends. Maggie and Sayori are both tomboyish characters, likely to behave or talk similarly like a male would around their age group. Sayori being unorganized, untidy, along with having toothpaste in her collar, while Maggie acts as the tougher individual in a chat, always wanting to be in charge, in control, and the winner. Maggie and Monica are both athletic individuals, not specific as to which sports Monica performs, along with Maggie playing basketball on a professional level. Brooke and Yuri are both highly intelligent individuals, capable of forming complex, hard to understand sentences, additionally both having evil intentions towards the other girls. Dolores and Monica are both antagonists of the game and overlords of her realm, controlling the whereabouts of the boy of their dreams. Dolores, throughout the first, second and third cycle, ordered Claire to kill Kyle's prom dreams, while Monica isolated protagonist in a realm to where it's just him and just Monica. Maggie and Natsuki are both bashful characters with a secretly goodwill behind them. The good will only reveal itself when you make the right choices. They are both also to sundries of that nature, when knowing that both project threats and soft spots moments towards the male. Brooke and Sayuri are both characters that help their male friend on social and learning interactions. Brooke helps Kyle with academic work, while Sayuri helps protagonist by making new friends and joining the literature club. Dolores and Natsuki are both characters that have at least one unsettling relationship with one of their family members. Dolores' auntie uses her disability and intended inheritance as a means to acquire additional funds, while Natsuki having something unsettling going on with her father in both secret letters and indirect dial nudges. Dolores and Sayuri are both characters that kill themselves during the game. Dolores offering her soul and body in order to acquire horrifying powers, along with Sayuri, okay, we've already mentioned this, hunt herself. Dolores and Yuri are both characters with yandere habits towards Kyle protagonist. Yuri's yandere side being highly frantic in the second cycle, while it being shallow in the first cycle. Dolores isn't so obvious. Both her obsession to Kyle when he spoke to Dolores for the first time made her fall in love with Kyle, amplified when Brooke lied to Dolores. Randy and Monica are both characters that act as a guide to Kyle protagonist in their endeavours. Randy helps Kyle find a prom dream, while Monica helps protagonists with their literature writing. Finally, Randy and Sayuri are both characters that support their friend during their adventure. Randy helping Kyle to find the girl of his dreams, while Sayuri helps protagonists find an after-school club along with making new friends and making a new companion for their life. These are all of the similarities that are confined between every character from Prom Dreams with a character from Doki Doki Literature Club. Prom Dreams and Doki Doki Literature Club share the dating theme, where the protagonist holds a sparkly feel to one of the three girls that they can choose from in the game. Both games orbit around a male protagonist. The game guides the protagonist to interact and socialize with at least 3 different girls, each girl with different personalities and traits. Both protagonists' end goal is to impress one of the girls by either crafting an appropriate item for their date, or write a poem that impresses the girl in which they are sharing the prom to. The end result is similar, but the physical execution is entirely different. The end of the first cycle on both games ends up losing an important friend, with Kyle losing his prom date from the killing methods of Claire, or with the protagonist in DDLC losing his childhood friend, Sayuri, by killing herself. We've already stated this, okay? Both of which ends the first cycle and transfers to the second one. Thanks, Monica. The second cycle in Prom Dreams is slightly different than the first one, only seeing very minor dialogue changes and one major event change, while in DDLC, the second cycle is quite warped. Never ever skip when I say this, but without Sayuri, there is nobody in that club that can break up an argument, especially when said short character and said yandere character. Kyle picks one prom date to choose between 2 girls, while the protagonist in DDLC can pick the same words of inspiration to write their poems. But only Natsuki and Yuri can be impressed with a minor change of neither being impressed by a word of choice. Yuri's behaviour changes dramatically as she becomes obsessed with the protagonist, along with Yuri being hateful towards Natsuki and Monica. The second cycle ends different on both games, with Monica manipulating reality along with Dolores in the background, and Claire preceding the plot to the third cycle. The third cycle in Prom Dreams is much different in changes of the story flow and dialogue changes from the second, whereas the changes in the second from the first are minor, resulting in the same outcome with all three of Kyle's prom dates being killed by Claire with the physical arrival of Dolores. The fourth cycle in Prom Dreams and the third cycle in DDLC both have similar psychological traits, where the protagonist is confined to a realm outside of their control, with only one other person existing in the realm with them. Intentions are both to do with love, Monica's love being apparent while Dolores' love for Kyle is hidden for a bit of time. With the chain of cycles end, both games end up with at least one person in reality losing their life. Brooke, Maggie and Neela were killed in Prom Dreams, while Monica was erased from existence. Natsuki, through her data was erased temporarily, was the only person aside from the protagonist that didn't die at all during the game, with every character with Prom Dreams having a scenario where all characters aside Randy died. With the ending where Kyle and Dolores are together, also known as abandoning, it's quite unknown whether or not Kyle dies. Dolores certainly died, otherwise the premise of the game wouldn't have happened. Now we're moving on to the differences in the games. Kyle is a social character that talks to multiple people, whereas the protagonist in DDLC only has one friend named Sayori at the start of the game. The DDLC protagonist likes to watch anime and read manga. In Prom Dreams it does not mention that Kyle likes or dislikes it. Kyle's male and Sayori's female, wants to get that one out of the way first. Kyle wants to be friends with everyone in the school, whereas Sayori only wants protagonists to be happy. Claire is without emotional understanding, whereas Yuri doesn't show hers at the beginning. Claire was created by Dolores' powers, whereas Yuri was born naturally. Doesn't say in the game otherwise. Claire is not obsessed with knives. She only uses them to dissect bodily parts from her victims and to kill herself. Yuri is obsessed with them, shown in dialogue and by her arms cut in the second cycle. Claire killed herself for a reason, but she has no purpose left when she and Kyle meets for the final time, whereas Sayori killed herself either from the protagonist's confession, or lack of confession, or from depression getting the better of her. Neither acquired an interest in Kyle before the game starts, stated as they are in the same classes. Yuri only met protagonist in the flow of the game where he goes to the literature club for the first time. Neela makes food for Kyle to make him happy. Also, it's to test out her cooking skill on what she can improve for the next time when she makes something for Kyle. Natsuki bakes cupcakes for everyone to have. She also takes a lot of pride in her baking, whereas Neela is joyful when she's given praise on her cooking. Unknown if Natsuki cooks as well as baking. Maggie has a bashful, confident nature about her, given the impressions she pulls when talking to Kyle. Sayori's nature is more relaxed and subdued, giving her nice opinions more openly and direct to protagonists without bashful sarcasm like Maggie. Maggie has an ambition in mind with her basketball, whereas Sayori only wants to make the protagonist happy without an ambition of her own. Maggie's attitude is bashful and a little confusing towards Kyle. Her true nature, layered with an ambition in basketball, is pointed out in the story. Monica's nature is quite subdued like Sayori, though unlike Maggie or Sayori, Monica's is a bit of an enigma. Only knowing that she wants to be with the protagonist deeply, Maggie's ambition in basketball and bashful nature gives a bit of backstory, whereas Monica doesn't have a backstory. Brooke's evil intentions derive from her ambitions on becoming the top graded student in the academy, whereas Dolores being the opposition that took first place away from her. With Yuri, her evil intentions came from being extremely obsessed with the protagonist, seeing both Monica and Natsuki as competition, hence that Sayori is not in the equation because she's already... Okay, anyways. Dolores' motivation to hold Kyle in her realm was due to multiple emotions, a seek of revenge and love on Kyle. Monica holds the protagonist in her realm so that there is just her and the protagonist, though throughout this process, Monica is actually talking to the player. Yes, you, me, anybody else. Maggie is not the shy kind to keep her feelings to herself. She openly admits what she feels aside any love, compassions, or anything cute for that matter. Though Natsuki tends to keep to herself unless the other person has similar interests. like manga or baking. Both sweet individuals on the inside, though they desired to end their own lives were for entirely different reasons. Dolores offered her soul to acquire otherworldly powers to acquire revenge on all who wronged her. Sayuri suffered from depression, and where protagonist confessed, or not confessed, to her. Some point between the last conversation and protagonist finding her next, Sayuri, okay, we've already mentioned this enough times, you know what happened. Both different methods leading to the same result, with the afterlife part added for Dolores. Dolores' obsession with Kyle is mixed with revenge, love, and a desire to allow Kyle to regret his past mistakes, with a Serena character. Not entirely yandere, but partially. With Yuri, the emotions she has are entirely relatable to yandere, being obsessively in love with the protagonist, along with a liking to knives which Dolores does not have. Randy's a male while Monica is female. Wants to get that one out of the way first. Randy's motivation to support Kyle comes from being a good friend, alongside luring him into a trap set out by Claire and Dolores. Monica's motivation to help protagonist to eventually isolate protagonist to be completely alone with her. Randy's a male while Sayuri is female. Wanted to get that one out of the way first. Randy supports Kyle with advice and motivation to help him overcome past events he's had by selecting a prom date in the school. Randy believes Kyle can overcome his shyness on selecting a date. Sayuri's support to protagonist enabled him to find a club to join with effective persuasion, making new friends along with the opportunity to open up to either Sayuri, Natsuki, or Yuri. Those are all of the differences I've found with characters who have similarities with. Now differences of the story in the game, including game mechanics. Prom Dreams consists of puzzles in the game, majority of them being in the fourth cycle of the game, with a few other ones being important to the true ending laying in the first, second and third cycle. Doki Doki Literature Club does not have any puzzles, as it is a visual novel game. Minimal controls for protagonists, as you can only observe words and choose on multiple choice scenarios, whereas in Prom Dreams you can move around. Prom Dreams has unnamed side characters, mainly other students, throughout the school that play a minor role in the game or one specific role that helps Kyle, whereas in Doki Doki Literature Club, the only minor character that's mentioned but we never see is Natsuki's dad. In Prom Dreams we can move around in the game, whereas in Doki Doki Literature Club we are confined to one room and one room only at a time. The story branches off into different directions that ultimately lead to the same end point, with Claire killing your beloved prom date, though between the start and end result, dialogue plays it differently depending on the character dated on time, the character dated late, and the one ditched. You'll see on prom night the consequences of speaking to the character you ditched, with the character herself projecting a negative reaction to Kyle. In Doki Doki Literature Club, the story only shifts moderately depending on who you write your prom for, along with who you chose first to show the prom to. Software and developer wise, Prom Dreams was made in RPG Maker VX Ace by QZ Productions, while Doki Doki Literature Club was made in Renpy by Team Salvato. Prom Dreams was released on September the 13th, 2016, while Doki Doki Literature Club was released on September the 22nd, 2017. Over a year apart in terms of their release dates. I'll be here all day talking about the differences between each game's story, as both are vastly different in how the events transpire, though ultimately Prom Dreams is thoroughly explained, while Doki Doki Literature Club is enigmatic with little to no explanation. Comparing line by line is an impossible feat, and I'm sure you guys who've made it this far into the video realise this matter in hand. Now onto the stuff that makes both games have their horror aspects. Prom Dreams has a mixture of grotesque content including blood, gore, murder, suicide, torture, bullying, and disability harassment. Only applied to a wheelchair user, nothing else. Doki Doki Literature Club has slightly different horror and abusive categories than Prom Dreams, including jump scares, psychological horror, glitching horror, horrible for any content creator, blood, self-harm, murder, suicide, and bullying. Many of the horrific events that transpires within both games you can say are executed differently, but initially, the first, second, and possibly third time around, the shock value remains strong, considering that you see a Sayuri dangling from that rope. Honestly, yeah. Both games in terms of horror offer a really good vibe on it depending on what kind of horror gets to you the most. For me personally, glass smashing usually jumps me, but that's just me. Prom Dreams from the creator has from Cycle 2 events which are haunting, and these within this particular cycle are quite subtle and hard to spot, especially for me as I'm not good at finding secrets. The third cycle though, oh gosh, there are a dramatic amount of changes in the haunting events, ranging from subtle things like monitors turning on and off, to a blood ritual circle with satanic symbols, with candles and blood orbiting, casting the supernatural and fantasy to reality. Monarch is essentially the master in the Prom Dreams universe, and was the one who granted Dolores unimaginable powers, though in the game it was a family tradition, from mother to child with Elena and Dolores. In this case it turned to their family's most closely guarded secret. As I discussed earlier, the main antagonists of both games being Monica and Dolores both hold abilities that no human could normally possess, with Doki Doki Literature Club lacking the explanation as to how Monica acquired her abilities, though both characters perpetuate events that lead to other main characters being killed or erased, with the boy of their dreams in purgatory with them, along with having total dominions over their fabricated realities. Imagine you being the protagonist of DDLC, or Kyle Mason from Prom Dreams, facing a cycle of horror that you have no knowledge about, or control over being casted by someone you cannot stop. At least with Kyle, he has a conscience in the later stages of the game, in which Kyle can interact back, as I feel in Doki Doki Literature Club, as Monica manipulates a scenario of a dimension they are in, that the protagonist loses his ability to talk. Doki Doki Literature Club's start to horror I'd say immediately shocks you, regardless of how immune you are to horrifying scenarios. Seeing Sayuri suspended from the ground with a rope instantly gives a vibe of suicide. From the protagonist's decline or acceptance of Sayuri's confession, both would plague her heart beyond the edge. The start of horror in Prom Dreams with blood covering the surface of the gym, along with a satanic circle, is horrific in itself, but the introduction of horror isn't as intense as the start of horror from Doki Doki Literature Club. Jump scares in my opinion are a premium to be actually scary, though the hanged remains of Sayuri is definitely up there. The glitching elements in Doki Doki Literature Club were also surprising at first. Straight from the start of the second cycle, with Sayuri's presence being erased and the game needing to be rebooted and re-edited by Monica to have no lines with Sayuri, the cycle continues, gets distorted on multiple occasions, etc., and repeat. Talking about every single fabric of horror, plot twists and characters' individualities, similarities and differences would take forever to cover, as it took 2 full days to record the background footage for you guys to see. Like I said in the introduction of this video, if there are any factors about any of the characters' similarities and differences that I have missed out on, or any major plot twists within the game that you feel I should have mentioned, the comment section is where they should be placed. Hope you all have enjoyed watching this video as much as I have making it and writing it out. Sleep well, don't scream like Kyle Mason while in purgatory, or become silenced like the DDLC protagonist in the end. And have a wonderful day.